Hey man, there's a form of dominance most men never master. It's not loud, it's not aggressive, it's not about barking orders or demanding submission. It's quiet, it's composed, it's felt, not forced. And when a woman encounters it, she doesn't just notice it, she melts into it. It's not the kind of dominance that shouts, "I'm in control." It's the kind that barely speaks but carries presence. It's in the man who walks into the room and doesn't have to prove himself. He doesn't compete, he doesn't chase. He simply exists with such unapologetic confidence that the entire room recalibrates. That's the subtle dominance she can't resist. Subtle dominance is felt before it's seen. It's in the way you hold eye contact. Steady, still, unblinking. Not challenging, not aggressive, just certain. It's in the way you stand, chest relaxed, chin level, breathing slow. It's in your tone, measured, calm, never rushed. You don't need to dominate the conversation, because you dominate the energy. You're not the loudest voice, you're the one people feel when they go silent. And she senses that immediately, not as threat, not as ego, but as direction. And direction, when it's clean and controlled, pulls her in. What makes this form of dominance irresistible is that it's not directed at her, it's directed at yourself. You're not trying to control her. You've simply mastered the art of controlling your own state. You don't overexpress, you don't overexplain, you don't get flustered, you're not emotionally volatile, you're emotionally contained, and that containment becomes a fortress. It creates a contrast between her emotional world and your grounded energy. And in that contrast, she doesn't feel oppressed, she feels safe, because now she knows she's in the presence of a man who doesn't just hold space, he owns it. You're dominant in the way you choose. You don't ask 100 questions. You say, "Let's do this," not because you're controlling, but because you're decisive. And women crave decisiveness, not dictatorship, direction. The subtle dominance she can't resist is the kind that lets her relax, soften, and stop overthinking. She doesn't have to lead, she doesn't have to plan, she doesn't have to manage the dynamic, because now she's with a man who moves with clarity, and that clarity becomes her comfort. This dominance is also deeply tied to how you handle conflict. You don't raise your voice, you don't match her emotional spikes, you listen, you breathe, and you respond in a way that's calm, firm, and grounded. You set boundaries, not ultimatums. You walk away when needed, not to manipulate her, but to maintain your frame. You're not afraid to leave the table if respect disappears. And because of that, she feels your power, not in your anger, but in your restraint. And restraint, when paired with quiet confidence, is more dominant than any alpha male performance will ever be. The man who leads with subtle dominance doesn't beg for attention, he doesn't seek it. He simply knows who he is, what he's about, and where he's going. His life has structure, his time has value, his energy is filtered, and she feels the difference, because now she's dealing with a man who isn't just attractive, he's disciplined. He's not looking for someone to complete him. He's inviting someone to join him, and she either rises to meet his standard or watches him disappear without noise. And that quiet confidence, that self-assurance, it haunts her when he's gone. Subtle dominance shows up in your pacing. You move slow, speak slow. You don't rush decisions. You don't rush intimacy. You don't rush connection. You let things unfold, but you always set the tone. You set the rhythm, and that rhythm keeps her in her feminine, because now she's not leading the tempo, you are. And the longer she dances to that rhythm, the deeper she sinks into trust. Not because you demanded it, but because you earned it without needing to ask. It's also in how you touch. You don't grope, you guide. Your touch is firm, intentional, and slow. Your hand on her lower back when you lead her through a crowd. The way you grab her chin gently but deliberately when you kiss her. The way you press your palm against the small of her back when she leans in. Nothing rushed, nothing needy, just dominance with patience, and she feels the command in your body before you even say a word. That's what creates arousal, not just attraction, because it tells her she's with a man who doesn't just take the lead, he moves like the lead. Subtle dominance also means you know when to be still. You're not addicted to movement, you're comfortable in silence. You don't fill every gap with noise. You don't need to be entertaining. You're okay with just being. And that just being energy creates curiosity. She starts wondering, what is he thinking? What's behind that look? Why isn't he trying harder? And that wonder turns into pursuit. because now she's working to earn more of you. And that reversal of energy is where her desire begins to deepen. You also don't force connection. You don't prove your worth. You let your actions show it. Your attention is scarce. Your validation is earned. Your compliments are given, not for effect, but for alignment. And when she realizes that you're not trying to win her, you're simply choosing her from a place of abundance, not lack, that's when the tables turn. Because now she's not being impressed, she's being measured. And the man who measures instead of chases, he becomes unforgettable. Subtle dominance is the way you handle her intensity without flinching. When she's emotional, you don't react, you contain. When she tries to push, you don't push back, you just let her burn it out. And when she finally collapses into vulnerability, it's your calm that catches her. Not your words, not your logic, not your need to fix it, just your energy, just your stillness. She realizes she's not dealing with a man who fights fire with fire. She's in the presence of a man who lets the fire die out on its own, while he stands untouched. That's the kind of man a woman trusts with her heart, her body, and her submission. You also lead with your time. You're not always available. You're not checking in constantly. You're not filling her world with predictable attention. And at first, she might try to test it. She'll pull away to see if you chase, but you don't. You let her feel your absence. You keep moving forward. Not as punishment, but because your time was never dependent on her proximity. You don't pause your life for approval. And the moment she feels that she's no longer the center of your emotional world, she feels the one thing that makes attraction grow like wildfire: uncertainty. And that uncertainty, mixed with your calm, it's a drug. There's dominance in your self-discipline, in how you treat your body, your money, your energy. She watches what you consume, how you sleep, how you show up. And whether she admits it or not, it turns her on. Because she realizes she's dealing with a man who controls his appetites. You're not ruled by impulse. You're not moved by distraction. You're focused. And that internal mastery makes her relax. Because now she knows if you can master yourself, you can hold her too. And that's what real dominance is about. Not control, containment. Your presence becomes the quiet authority in her life. Not because you dominate her space, but because you elevate the quality of it. She starts dressing different around you, speaking different, thinking more deeply. Why? Because your energy demands it without ever asking for it. You're not telling her to change. You're just so grounded in your own standard that she naturally rises to match it. That's leadership. That's dominance. That's the subtle gravity of a man who doesn't preach strength. He just lives it. And you're not trying to make her submit. You're not demanding softness. You're not asking her to be feminine. You simply create the container where she doesn't have to be anything else. She can breathe. She can relax. She can feel. Because your energy says, I've got this. And the less you say it out loud, the more she feels it. That's the paradox of real masculine dominance. It's invisible. It's the space you hold, the tempo you set, the frequency you bring into the room. And she'll never be able to explain it, but she'll always feel drawn back to it. Subtle dominance is also in how you say no. You don't argue, you don't justify, you just don't move. You know your line, you know your values, you know what you don't tolerate, and you don't raise your voice to defend it. You just hold. And that unshakable no is louder than any emotional explosion. It teaches her that you're not trying to be liked, you're trying to stay aligned, and alignment is what makes her trust you more than the guy who's always saying yes just to keep her comfortable, because comfort fades, but respect builds. Eventually, she stops testing, she stops pushing, she starts leaning in, not because she gave up her power, but because she's finally in the presence of someone who doesn't try to take it. You didn't dominate her spirit. You created a space where her feminine feels held without being handled. And that kind of space, that's what makes her stay. Not because she's trapped, but because, for the first time, she doesn't feel the need to lead. Because you've already done it without ever saying, I'm in charge. Subtle dominance also means you let her miss you. You're not over-communicating. You're not available every second. You don't explain your silence. You just disappear into your mission. And when she realizes she hasn't heard from you, she feels it. Not in panic, but in pull. And that pull makes her wonder, think, reflect, crave. Because you didn't force her to come closer, you simply stopped trying to keep her near. And that emotional vacuum, that space where you used to pour effort, that's where her desire gets reborn. When you carry subtle dominance, you don't chase, you attract. Not through manipulation, but through clarity. You know where you're going, you know what you're building, and you're not waiting on anyone to validate it. You move at your own rhythm. You love without losing your frame. You lead without taking her voice. You hold her close without ever holding her down. And that's why she can't resist you, because you've become the man who makes her feel something no one else does. Free, safe, turned on, all at the same time. So remember this, man. Dominance isn't about volume. It's not about control. It's not about performance. It's about presence. It's about the discipline to lead yourself so fully that she can't help but follow. It's about the calm in your voice, the strength in your stillness, the edge in your energy. It's about never needing to take power from anyone because you've already claimed your own. That's the kind of dominance that doesn't need to announce itself. It walks in, sits down, and changes the entire room. And that's what she'll never forget.